Hello friends, welcome to another manhwa story. I hope you will like this manga very much. This story is about a boy named Ryu who is always the loser whose life is a complete mess. First he is bullied and beaten up every day. And if that wasn't enough, one day his little brother is bullied so much that he goes blind and has multiple fractures. And if that wasn't enough, their parents are killed in a car accident. But wait, there is more. One day on Christmas Eve, a hot demon angel kidnaps 9 billion people from the earth and sends them to a dungeon, giving them unique abilities, while other people get abilities like super strength or mind control. Ryu gets such poor skills that it is almost laughable. He had no skills at all. Well, all of his stats are below average, every single one of them, and his unique gift is that when he dies, he goes back to New Year's Eve and starts everything over again. Then, with no unique abilities and lousy stats, he dies countless times, gets tortured, betrayed, horribly abused. But still, Ryu grits his teeth and drags himself through one hellish floor after another for years. Alone and finally, after a lifetime of suffering, he reaches the top floor. The journey takes a cruel turn. However, to advance to the final level, one must be part of a team of 5. Always alone and still a virgin, Ryu doesn't meet the criteria, so once again he dies, this time on his 99th attempt. Yet, as fate would have it, the clock resets. It's New Year's Eve and Ryu finds himself back at the starting point, certain that he will change his luck this time. With his hands still shaking, Ryu can't shake the memories of the unimaginable pain he just went through. He can't believe he died because he was alone on the last floor. It was almost unbearable. Despair overcomes him. He clenches his fists and averts his eyes. He prepares to try once more, one last time. Ryu then takes off his hoodie, throws it aside, and looks down at the ground. He's deep in thought, wondering who he can team up with this time. Suddenly, the scene changes. The spotlight is now on this idiot, Youngman, the man who turned Ryu's life into hell. Youngman and his friends are all smiling, happy that they're about to become adults and won't be walking around with fake IDs to buy alcohol anymore. They're in the mood for conversation, talking about the jobs they want in the future. When it's Youngman's turn, his smile grows even deeper, more dominant. His friends ask him what he has in mind for the future. Without a second thought, Youngman says he's thinking about becoming a gangster. His friends stop at this. They look worried, almost nervous. They tell Youngman that he's gone crazy, that one wrong move in this world can land you in jail and even get you killed. But Youngman, who has always been the unabashed badass, ignores them. According to him, he only has one life to live, so why not do what he likes? Beating people up. His friends laugh a little, but inside they are angry. They are silently labeling him a crazy man. They are even thinking about leaving him forever once he gets out of school. Then, to divert the conversation, one of Youngman's friends asks what he plans to do with Ryu, calling him his errand boy. Youngman remembers Ryu as a miserable loser, and with a sinister smile, he says that he will definitely not let Ryu go. Even after graduation, he would continue to mess with Ryu until the fun was over. Then, one of his friends noticed someone and turned to get Youngman's attention. He told him that he found Youngman's assistant guy, Ryu. Youngman got excited to see Ryu, and the countdown for New Year's Eve began, with only 5 seconds left. But something unusual happened. As Ryu took off his hoodie and looked at Youngman with a cold, determined gaze, a black aura surrounded him, which startled Youngman as he felt something was different about Ryu. Youngman's confusion turned into boiling anger as Ryu glared at him. He clenched his fists, ready to beat Ryu up. However, his friend intervened, suggesting they let it be since it was New Year's. As the bell rang to signal the arrival of the new year, a sinister voice echoed throughout the area, addressing all humans as if they were insignificant beings. Dressed in a pure white gown matching the giant wings, one eye hidden by a piece of cloth, the angel looked at the crowd with an amusing smile. She commented that looking at humans always felt like looking at caged monkeys. Meanwhile, downstairs, the crowd was losing control, some people thinking that this was an event held for the new year, while others were shocked, finding it all a little too surreal. And some people were already mesmerized by the angel's beauty, calling her hot and pretty. Ryu, on the other hand, was staring at her. Even though she looked hot, his anger was still boiling inside him after seeing her for the 99th time. The angel let out a light laugh and called all humans trash for being blown away by her beauty. Shocked, putting her hand on her chin and looking as if she was thinking about something delicious, the fairy said that since they all looked stunned, it must mean they can see and hear her, and therefore her game must begin. At the same time, a drunken man yelled at the fairy, cursing her, questioning her cosplay, and even calling her a bitch. Ryu, hearing all of this, said, "What a shame." In the next moment, the fairy's warm, inviting smile turned into a sinister, death-like glare. Her eyes turned dangerously red, her expression turned scary, and with a simple flick of her finger, the man's head burst like a bubble, spraying blood all around. The crowd, now truly frightened, erupted into chaos, scattering in every direction. With her frightening aura, the fairy pointed her finger towards the crowd. She said in a scary tone, "How dare an insignificant human being speak so informally to my powerful self?" Then, as if someone was pressing a button, her aura returned to its previous kind state. She then spoke politely but firmly, warning the crowd that if they didn't want their heads to explode like that unlucky man's, they had no right to question her. The panic in the crowd began to spread like a tide. She began to explain what they had to do and what this game was about. Ryu, on the other hand, remained frustrated as he had to listen to her once again. With a warm smile and a kind aura, she extended her hand and said that they would have to play a simple game. This game would be 20 rounds and would start on the 1st of every month. Their souls would be transported to another world, and after completing each round, they can return back to Earth. It seemed simple enough. The crowd became confused upon hearing this. The crowd was thinking that they could escape by playing a simple game. Even the young man became a little nervous. Then, the angel dropped another bombshell, saying, "Who said all humans would survive? Even if they complete the quest, only half of the participants would survive." She then announced how kind she was to save half of them, and Ryu stared at her, not saying a single word. Then, the angel gave another shocking information that she would not take all humans. With a mischievous smile, she explained that she would only take humans aged 15 to 29. Upon hearing this, one man became incredibly happy, making funny faces and shouting that he had survived and would not have to die. Another young man grabbed the old man's collar in desperation, and they began to fight. The young man stepped forward to stop them, warning them to remember the man who was screaming, his head bursting like a bubble. The angel turned around and began counting. After a while, he announced that a total of 1.8 billion humans were present. With a warm smile, he snapped his fingers, and in the next moment, Ryu found himself in a room surrounded by whiteness. The angel began to explain that in this place, participants could create a physical body of their choice, and their souls would transfer into that body. Standing in front of a mirror, Ryu, without much thought, instantly created a character using the body from his previous regression. He chose the alias Black Scythe. A bright light surrounded his eyes, and in the next moment, a beautiful field appeared, filled with lush greenery, forests, and mountains. Ryu, befitting his badass character, magically appeared here with black hair and piercing red eyes. Clenching his fists, he thought that using this body so often made it feel almost like his real body. Slowly, other participants in the scenario began to appear. Their faces reflected fear, bewilderment, and in some cases, surprise at their own transformation. Some had chosen the persona of a famous movie star or a surprisingly good-looking person. Ryu looked at them and thought about his initial choices. He remembered that he too had chosen a flashy, handsome look before, but it had attracted too much attention. And because of this, he died miserably. So now, he opted to keep it as simple as possible, so as to avoid unnecessary attention. Then Ryu's eyes fell on Youngman, the job that had always made life miserable for him. In this new world, Youngman began to resemble his real-world form, just taller and more muscular. He walked around smiling proudly and with glowing eyes. Ryu couldn't help but smile through the sweat, seeing that the young man had reshaped his character, just like her form. The angel then congratulated everyone on sculpting their desired bodies, and explained how their terrified expressions pleased her. One man dared to ask, "It doesn't seem like there are 1.8 billion people here. Is there a mistake?" Laughing at this, the angel replied by calling humans inferior, and she screamed and said, "Has she given them permission to speak?" She said that there are many angels looking after the small groups, and it is none of their business. She warned that if anyone spoke without her permission, she would pop his head like a bubble. With that, she began the search. She then ordered all humans to speak through the status window, and as soon as they did so, a status window appeared. As usual, Ryu's stats were worthless. His strength, intelligence, agility, and luck were all useless, without any generals or skills. The fairy continued, "Now that everyone has opened their status windows and become familiar with this system, which is specifically designed like a game for garbage, so that humans can easily understand," she gave a wicked smile and extended her hand. She announced that if they level up and clear 20 rounds, they will be granted one wish, and they can ask for whatever they want. Hearing this, everyone including the young men were stunned. Then, with an amusing smile, she announced that she will now give everyone their unique skills. A crystal appeared in front of them, and when they broke the crystal, they received their unique skill. As the young men broke her crystal, she was shocked, and then the fairy said, "Since they have all received their unique skill, the game begins." With a flick of his finger, a notification appeared in front of everyone instructing them to kill 100 ghosts to survive this round, and just like that, a ghost appeared in front of them. Shivers ran down the spines of the participants as they saw the ghost approaching them with a dagger. Just when they thought it couldn't get any worse, the angel had another surprise in store. Stretching out his legs and arms, he summoned an entire army of ghosts, sending panic through the participants. The angel couldn't have been happier, his mischievous smile reflecting his joy at the prospect of a life or death battle between 10,000 humans and 50,000 ghosts. Suddenly, a ghost entered the crowd. The tension was palpable, but then, to everyone's surprise, Ryu stepped forward unarmed. Whispers echoed through the crowd as he walked towards the attacking ghost. Everyone tried to warn him off, claiming it was too dangerous. However, Ryu seemed to have other plans in mind. The tension was evident amongst everyone. But then, to everyone's surprise, everyone looked at Ryu. How could he move alone, unarmed? Murmurs echoed through the crowd as he advanced towards the attacking ghost. Everyone tried to warn him off, claiming that it was too dangerous. You can't kill him alone. However, Ryu had a different plan in mind. With remarkable force, he delivered a powerful kick, sending the ghost flying backwards and leaving the entire crowd stunned. He changed his plan and decided to show the crowd his full strength, as this was part of his future plans. Raising the ghost dagger, Ryu set his eyes on the fairy, determined to get her attention. Then, when 2 more ghosts advanced to attack him, Ryu stood with his dagger at the ready. In a single strike, both were killed. Again, everyone was shocked, and started saying how calm Ryu was. What a calm person he seemed to be. Then one person started saying that these ghosts might be weak, and that they might even kill them easily, assuming it was no big deal. But before he could finish his words, one of the ghosts attacked them, smiled and stabbed them. Seeing this, everyone panicked and started running away. Meanwhile, Ryu continues to eliminate the ghosts without any effort. When he saw the horrific scene of humans being brutally killed by ghosts, Ryu knew that now these people would only have one thing on their minds: survival. Some people might try to escape, but the area was protected by a barrier, so running away was impossible. Others might hesitate to kill a living creature, but to survive, they had no choice but to fight or be killed. Ryu explained how he was once like them, but weaker, and after doing this 99 times, he knew the ghost's movements and weaknesses like the back of his hand, making it easy for him to kill them. Watching the scene from above, the fairy was having fun. She was really enjoying the chaos of the ghosts and humans fighting each other. Smiling, she commented on how the humans, whom she called monkeys, were struggling against the ghosts. Even though the ghosts had small and weak bodies, they had the upper hand when they were armed with daggers. However, she finally caught sight of Ryu, who was ripping through the ghosts like a tornado. She saw his nickname, Black Scythe, and realized that he had killed 70 ghosts in no time. A look of irritation flashed across her face. She was surprised that Ryu's dominance was spoiling her fun. But ignoring it, she told herself, hey, nothing can be done about it, and focused her attention on watching other humans fight to save their lives. Ryu, on the other hand, continued his attack. Becoming a one-man killing machine, the ghosts began to fear him. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Ryu checked his status window. He had attained a level of 4 and had 6 stat points to allocate. Without hesitation, he put all his points into agility, explaining that agility not only increases dodge ability, but also affects attack and speed. In the beginning, agility is the real MVP, Ryu thought. Looking at his dagger, Ryu said aloud, this should get the attention of that annoying angel. With a swift throw, his dagger found its target, burying itself in the head of a ghost. Stretching out his arm before throwing, he confidently declared his intention to eliminate all the ghosts that day. Sensing the determination in his voice, the ghosts trembled in fear. Without stopping, Ryu got back to work, and in no time he reached his goal, defeating 100 ghosts. After successfully completing the quest, a bright yellow light surrounded Ryu, creating a protective shield that kept the ghosts at bay. Standing there with a calm, composed expression, he commented that the first round was pretty easy. He slashed the ghosts madly with all his might, just to get the angel's attention. But truth be told, there was another reason behind it. Then, with a sly smile, Ryu shared that he was also aiming for a secret reward. The system, impressed by his lightning-fast completion time of 10 minutes and 21 seconds, congratulated Ryu for achieving rank 1 in all areas, setting a new historical record. Feeling very pleased with himself, Ryu reported that he had an ace up his sleeve. As a reward, the system gave Ryu a coupon, which was a true game changer. With it, he could choose any low-ranked rare weapon of his choice, absolutely free of charge. Ryu, whose hand was still stained with the ghost's blood, eagerly clicked the coupon, and an array of weapons appeared in front of him. However, there was a glint of disappointment in his eyes. You see, his trusty main weapon was a sickle, which was a rare item indeed. So, reluctantly, he took a dagger and tossed the evil ghost aside, throwing away the dagger like it was trash. Meanwhile, the other players were still engaged in a life and death struggle. However, Ryu was in a league of his own. He casually checked his status window, and there was a title that caught his eye, one he had never seen in his previous 99 lives, The Last Time Regressor. This was new to him, and he couldn't help but wonder what it meant. The scene went into flashback, giving us a glimpse of how Ryu earned this new title. Maintaining his poker face, Ryu had used the stone, causing it to slowly fade as he regenerated his unique skill, regression. However, the system immediately informed him that this was the 100th time he had used this skill, and it was time to say goodbye to it. Now, this wasn't a huge shock to Ryu, who had guessed that his skill would be deleted after the 100th use. Otherwise, he could have gone backwards for eternity. However, there was a twist to the tale. Another system notification popped up, shocking Ryu. It informed him that this 100th regression had earned him a special title, The Last Time Regressor. This news really surprised Ryu. You see, in this world, titles were extremely rare, and each came with their own skills and stat boosts. Curiously, Ryu examined his new title and what it provided. After death, he would be resurrected with full health, and more than that, he could choose the exact location, where he would return to the world of the living. However, this was a one-time used ability. At this revelation, Ryu smiled, a genuine smile. He rested his chin on his hand, realizing that he had just laid his hands on something extraordinary. After that, Ryu spread his arms, feeling a little restless. He was honestly bored and wondered what Youngman would be like. After taking a quick look around, he saw Youngman. The man was still kicking. Ryu smiled a little, thinking that it seemed like he would get out of this mess just like before. As time went on, more participants were finishing their quests, but not the fairy. It looked like she was about to doze off. She also said that it was getting boring because there were now as many ghosts as there were humans. Down on the ground, it was a completely different story. The humans were really upset. Some looked like they were taking their last breath, while others were crying while hugging their loved ones. Then, suddenly, the mischievous fairy had a wicked idea. She decided to make things even more fun, as if things weren't bad enough already. The terrified black-haired girl looked at her injured husband in horror as he disappeared. And it wasn't just him. All the bodies started to disappear. While everyone was trying to figure out what was going on, a massive group of ghosts appeared and rushed towards the humans, causing utter mayhem. From a distance, all you could see was a messy, brutal battle. The ghosts and humans were battling each other like there was never tomorrow. And on top of that, the fairy was having the best time of her life, laughing like crazy and even dared to say that she was being generous by giving them 50,000 ghosts for free. Ryu, on the other hand, was just relaxing, sitting safely under his barrier. Friends, today's video is going to be very interesting, because today there will be a fight between our hero and the angel. Let's see who kills whom. While the angel has the power to break heads with a single snap of his fingers, she didn't make any movements or show any emotion, even though things were getting pretty wild out there. After a while, a system message popped up. It announced that 5,134 people had managed to complete their mission, marking the end of the round. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, all the ghosts disappeared. This left the remaining participants completely stunned. Then the angel flew in. Since half of the people who arrived first had succeeded in the mission, the rest were not so lucky. And as she delivered the news, the unlucky ones began to disappear. Their screams and pleas filled the air, but the angel, she didn't even blink an eye. One person even said, "Wait a minute, Miss Angle, I have to kill another monster." But she just sat there, immersed in the drama as if it were some top-tier entertainment. Then a system notification popped up, showing everyone's ranking, and Ryu was number 1. He received another reward for finishing on top, which was 1,000 gold. Meanwhile, everyone was looking at Ryu in amazement. With expressions, he also realized that he was ranked first. The awaited moment had arrived. The angel showed interest in Ryu, just as our hero Ryu had expected. Then smiling, she praised Ryu, admitting that being ranked number 1 in the entire world under Rigan and her group was an achievement worth being proud of. The angel called out to Ryu, using his nickname, Black Scythe, and asked him how he became so strong. She started to ask if he had acquired any special, unique skills, but stopped in the middle, cursing herself. Ryu responded, asking if she couldn't already tell what unique skills he had because he was a fairy. The angel nervously replied that of course she could tell, because she was a powerful fairy, and she was only asking. Ryu smiled inwardly, knowing that she couldn't truly understand his unique skills. Then Ryu drops a bomb, asking the angel for a favor. This wipes the smile off her face. You could hear a pin drop and everyone's jaws drop to the ground. Ryu, brave as brass, said that the rewards were a bit worthless and that he wanted something else. Everyone couldn't believe their ears. How could he talk to a fairy like that? The fairy, however, was ready to explode. Anger was boiling inside her like a volcano, in a voice that could curdle milk. She told Ryu to spit it out. What did he want? Ryu, never losing his temper, said he wanted a better reward. The fairy watched, her eyes turning black like the abyss, a terrifying aura swirling around her, veins popping out like she was about to go supernova. Slowly her hand moved forward as if she was going to crush Ryu's head like a grape, but she stopped herself midway. She remembered that she couldn't use her head bursting power again. Not now. She had a 1 per day limit, and she had already used one. Suddenly, an idea came to the fairy's mind. With a mischievous smile, she told Ryu that she had a reward that Ryu would surely like, and then she slowly descended to the ground, saying that normally she would have ignored such a bold request. But she liked Ryu, and she wanted to talk to him alone, one-on-one. She told the rest of the humans to wait a little while, as they would be back soon. The fairy and Ryu walked off into the forest, leaving the crowd in envy. They all thought, man, maybe we should have asked for a better reward too. But they quickly realized that only a top dog like Ryu could ask for a big reward without getting their heads ripped off. As they descended, looking at the young man, he was left scratching his head. Ryu just gave a sly smile and walked on. As they walked further into the forest, the angel said, "Why are you staying behind? I'm not going to bite. Come with me." and Ryu just nodded. Inside the angel was losing her temper. She thought humans were crazy greedy, and she had some special plans for Ryu. Her face turned completely sinister, and she let out a slow, scary laugh. She thought that once they crossed a certain cliff, they would be out of the surveillance area, and then she would take her revenge, giving Ryu a slow, painful end. As she reached the magical spot, she tried to make her best smiling face, telling Ryu that he was about to get his special reward. But suddenly, a fist came towards her. Before she could dodge the blast, Ryu's punch blew him away and made this holy being look like a holy crapshoot. The angel was in shock as golden blood poured out of her mouth. She couldn't comprehend the fact that she had been punched by an ordinary human. Angrily, she composed herself and tried to find Ryu, but the man had disappeared. Just when she thought she had calmed down, suddenly, Ryu was right behind her, ready to pounce. In a clever move, Ryu put one hand on her wing and wrapped the other around her neck. The angel, who was usually so in control, panicked greatly. She yelled at him to back off, but Ryu, he just calmly tore off one of her wings. The pain hit her hard, and she fainted for a moment. And when she came to her senses, Ryu was already tearing off her other wing and golden blood was spilling everywhere. And she couldn't stop herself from screaming in pain. Ryu, calm as ice, told her to stop the dramatic act. Then he pinned her to the ground, stepped on her back, and grabbed her last feather. She pleaded and cried, but Ryu showed no mercy. With one last blow, he tore off her last feather too and said that now she won't be able to run away and they can talk peacefully. Now the angel, trembling, slowly turned back and Ryu asked her if she was feeling pain, but she didn't say anything, just gritted her teeth. Then Ryu smiled and asked her if she didn't do that. In his place, he would have been crying in pain, and the angel would have been smiling like crazy. Hearing this, the angel got scared and started shouting, "Why is Ryu talking this nonsense?" She called Ryu crazy for hurting an innocent angel. But then, with cold eyes, Ryu picked up the angel's torn wing and showed her the dagger hidden behind her wing. He asked her if she wasn't planning to kill him with this hidden dagger. Then what was it for? To insert it into her vagina. The angel was speechless upon hearing this. Ryu stood up, threw the feather aside, said he had done this for the 88th time, and it was still satisfying while the angel was confused, unable to understand what Ryu was saying. Then Ryu dropped another bomb. He called the angel by her name Beryl and told her that he knew everything about her, and now it was time for her to die. Now, fear, anger, and shock were mixed on the angel's pale face as she wondered how Ryu knew her name. She thought it was impossible. Ryu replied that there was no point in killing someone who had a birthday, and he took out the Outlook dagger from his inventory and took it home. The angel got even more nervous and started shouting. If Ryu killed him, the consequences would be very bad. Then, in the loudest voice, pointing a finger towards Ryu, he threatened him if he didn't stop. Then he used his sword and cracked Ryu's head like a hammer. But Ryu calmly replied that he can do whatever he wants, but he can't use that threat, because it can only be used once a day. Now, the angel was grinding his teeth in anger and then in worry. He warned Ryu that if he killed him, his friends would not let him go without any injury. But Ryu, with a calm and emotionless expression, simply said, "Comrades, my ass." She knew she was a lonely girl with no friends and no one would come to help her. The other angels did not care about what happened to their fellow angel. Ryu slowly walked towards the angel and began threatening that she would regret killing him. But before she could finish her words, Ryu raised his dagger and thrust it very forcefully into her chest, causing her to explode. Golden blood splattered around her, and she screamed in pain. However, Ryu's expression remained cold and calm as he stood over her lifeless form. The system then informed Ryu that he had accomplished an incredible feat. He had become the first person in history to kill an angel. He received 2 rewards for this act. First, he received the angel's special essence, his sap, and second, he received an ability called the Ruin Crystal. This was the reason he had killed the angel, and he had succeeded in his goal. The ruins were known as the Ruins of Slaughter, and Ryu wasted no time in using it. As soon as he activated the ruin, he began to merge with it, and the system immediately informed him that he had obtained a unique skill called butchery. With this skill, every time he killed his target, all of his stats would increase by 1%, making him even more formidable. The system didn't stop there. It informed Ryu that he had earned the title of First Angel Slayer. This title gave him a tremendous advantage, as when facing an angel in battle, all of his stats would double, making him a formidable adversary. Now, the most important reward awaited Ryu as he held the angel's special juice in his hand. It explained that it was only for this reason that he had taken the risk of killing the angel. This special juice, after drinking it, would allow him to change his class to become the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper class was considered the natural enemy of angels, making Ryu a formidable opponent against them, as angels would become a pain in the future. Ryu explained that anyone in this world could obtain a class, but the process for obtaining it was shrouded in mystery. People gradually discovered the criteria through trial and error. For example, one could obtain the warrior class by defeating a certain number of ghosts within a certain time frame. There were a total of 30 classes available, but some were unique and could only be obtained by meeting special conditions, such as drinking the special essence of an angel. These unique classes were significantly more powerful than the standard classes. Ryu researched all the classes in his previous 99 lives and found that the Grim Reaper class was the best choice, allowing him to fight angels on equal terms in the future. Ryu wasted no time in claiming his rewards for coming in first place in the entire arena. He carefully selected the 3x experience buff for 2 rounds, fully aware of its importance. He already had valuable information and a good amount of gold, but he needed to level up as quickly as possible for his future plans. As Ryu made his choices, the angel's presence began to fade and a soothing white light surrounded the entire arena. Then the scene changed and we found ourselves back on Earth with Youngman. He was gasping and shocked, slowly lifting his head as he wondered if everything that had happened was just a nightmare. However, Youngman noticed something strange. He checked his phone and found that exactly 5 hours and 20 minutes had passed, which was the same amount of time he had spent in his dream. Gradually, others around him also started waking up with headaches. Friends, this chapter ends here. Please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to watch the next chapter. Ryu said Youngman's friend also woke up confused and told him he had a strange dream, but Youngman saw something even more horrifying. When he gently pushed his friend's leg, there was no response. The other friend tried to wake the motionless man, but found that he was dead. His face had turned pale. They panicked as they realized that whatever had happened in the dream was not just a fantasy, it was a horrifying reality. Whoever had died in that dream had suffered the same fate in real life. This shocking revelation was too much to bear, and they were gripped by fear. Youngman and his friends were wildly assessing their surroundings, trying to decide what to do next and how to face the challenges of the coming month. Amid fear and confusion, Youngman was trembling, but the reason for his trembling was not fear. Instead, he was trembling with excitement, a strange anticipation rising within him. He was excited thinking that in that world, everyone was equal, and it didn't matter if they were the president or a celebrity. In that world, power was king, and he could do whatever he wanted. He could kill anyone he wanted. Meanwhile, his friends were crying in panic, fearing that he would die a virgin next month if he failed to complete the quest. But Youngman scolded them, telling them that he wasn't the only one facing this problem. He told them to calm down and explained that they just had to kill a few monsters to survive the next round. It was as easy as putting butter on bread. Hearing this, his friends didn't believe what they were hearing and initially thought Youngman was crazy. But now, he seemed even crazier. One of them sighed and called him a bastard, saying that given his miserable life, no one would miss him if he died right now. After all, he had so many things he wanted to do. Youngman didn't pay much attention to what he said. He was looking through the crowd. His friends asked him what he was looking for, and it turned out he was looking for his personal punching bag, Ryu. He wondered where the little bastard went. He was sure he saw him heading in that direction before he fainted. Could it be that he didn't make it past the first round and died there? But still not finding him, he calmly shrugged his shoulders. He understood that a loser like him wouldn't have survived and would most likely die. Suddenly, something in the crowd caught his attention. He saw a man dressed in medieval armor. Youngmin couldn't figure out who this guy was and where he dug up this old armor. But then he realized that it could only mean one thing. The status window was working here too. As soon as he gave the correct command, a status window with his attributes appeared in front of him. He couldn't believe it was working. Youngmin immediately asked his friends to turn on their status windows and see why it was working here too. They were once again surprised that it was working. Seeing his actions, the others did the same. But everyone was curious if this meant they could use all their stats and items here. A few hours later, to test it, Youngmin picked up a small pebble from the ground and pressed it in his hand. It shattered into tiny pieces, and the remains of the stone turned into a saw blade that protruded from his fingers. At this sight, he let out a wicked smile. A few hours later, the next breaking news was announced on the morning news across the country. Many angels were seen around the world, and 9 billion people died overnight. When 9 billion people gained mysterious powers, turning the whole world upside down, Ryu-min was walking down the street with a serious face, reading the news on his smartphone. This is just the beginning, he thought. The real chaos is about to come. The real problem was now in the first round. People didn't get that strong. They just reached the level of a professional athlete. The real chaos would start from the second round, when they would get magical powers, leading to many criminal activities because modern weapons wouldn't work on them. Ryu couldn't stand to see the world plunge into chaos. If he left things as they were, the Earth would be doomed before the 20th round came. There was only one solution. He would have to control the other players by subduing them, making them his slaves. With a serious expression, he realized that he needed to gather his 5 teammates as soon as possible, and he had a few of them in mind. But then he told himself, it's not important anymore. There is something more important to do. He left with determination. He arrived home and knocked on the door of the apartment building in his Seoul neighborhood. No one answered or opened the door, so he pulled the key out from its hiding place and walked in. It was dark inside, and he saw an uneaten instant cup noodle. Slowly, he reached his bedroom. There, his younger brother, Wani, was sleeping peacefully and unperturbed on the floor. Upon seeing him, Ryu couldn't help but smile. He was happy that his younger brother was safe and sleeping peacefully. He stared at his sleeping brother lovingly for a while. Ryu explained that his younger brother's name was Wani and that he was in the 3rd year of middle school. In a sad voice, he further said that their family was once very simple and happy. But after their parents died in a car accident, many things changed quickly for them. The biggest change was that Ryu became his younger brother's sole family and guardian. When Ryu looked at his younger brother, he noticed that the band-aid was coming off his hand. And there were some bruises on his shoulders, like someone had beaten him up. Ryu gently stuck the band-aid back on and kept looking at his brother, lost in thought. Morning came and Ryu woke his younger brother up, telling him that it was morning and it was time to get up. Wani, still sleepy, slowly woke up and questioned why he was being woken up so early, especially when he didn't have any class today. Ryu noticed how lazy his younger brother was, and he removed the blanket from over him, which startled him, and he woke up startled. Ryu explained that they didn't have time to sleep, and he would explain everything later. At this time, Ryu instructed her to get ready quickly because they had to go somewhere, his face still serious. Wani took her time, not fully understanding what was going on. She yawned and asked where they were going, but Ryu, with a serious expression, told her that they had no time to rest and that the whole world was in chaos. Wani asked if there was something wrong with the New Year celebration he was going to attend, but Ryu told him to get out of the house first and promised to tell him everything later. When they left the house and started walking down the narrow alley, Wani noticed a significant change in his brother's behavior. Ryu, who was usually carefree and easygoing, appeared unusually serious. Wani felt something unusual had happened, but he was hesitant to ask, thinking that Ryu would eventually tell him what was on his mind. Ryu then turned to his younger brother and asked if he knew what was going on in the world. Wani became confused upon hearing this, wondering what could have happened while he was sleeping in his nervous state. Ryu urged his younger brother to check the latest news on his smartphone search feed. Wani quickly scrolled through the updates, trying to understand the seriousness of the situation. She couldn't believe what she was reading. Stories of angels kidnapping people's souls and taking them to another world, where half of them mysteriously died of heart attacks. Panic surged inside Wani upon hearing this shocking news. Wani quickly scrolled through the updates, trying to understand the gravity of the situation. He was taken aback by what he read: stories of angels kidnapping people's souls and taking them to another world, where half of them mysteriously die of heart attacks. A wave of panic ran through Wani upon hearing the shocking news. In a state of anxiety, he bombarded Ryu with questions, asking, was Ryu also transported to that world? His brother told him that he was transported as well, and that he could only get out of there after killing 100 demons. Hearing this, Wani immediately began to worry about his brother's health and asked if he was hurt. He bombarded Ryu with questions, but Ryu reassured him that he shouldn't worry about himself. However, hearing this made Wani even more worried. After all, Ryu was his only family, his only brother, and his most loved person. Ryu was his whole world, and the thought of something happening to his brother was unbearable. Ryu became the strongest person mentally from a very young age to act as both a mother and father. But having a strong mind and killing 100 demons are two completely different things. Ryu smiled at his worried little brother and told him not to worry too much. Ryu reassured Wani that he would explain everything later, but right now they didn't have much time, and they needed to take action. Wani then stopped and asked Ryu to tell him where they were going. He was willing to follow Ryu, but all the information was too much for him, and he would only follow Ryu if he told him where they were going. Seeing his younger brother's injured hand, Ryu turned to Wani and told him in a cold voice that they were going to attack the hideout of Tegu, who was the leader of the bullies in their class, which shocked his younger brother. Still unable to believe that his brother found out, Wani asked his brother if he really knew about it. Ryu asked back, "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" Now Wani bit his lip, realizing that he thought he had hidden his secret well, but it turned out that his brother already knew about the bullying. Now worried, Wani sat there thinking about how he didn't want to involve his brother in his life, when Ryu himself was being bullied and going through a tough time. Ryu, on the other hand, seeing his younger brother depressed, apologized to him in his thoughts and told himself that he shouldn't have known this before, but he found it out during the first regression. After returning from the first round, Ryu Min slept all day in depression, and his younger brother went somewhere in the morning. After a while, Ryu woke up when the phone rang. Disturbed, wondering who was calling him, he picked up the phone, still in sleep. He asked who was calling, to which the voice immediately asked if he was the guardian of someone named Wani. Then he immediately said that he should come to the hospital immediately. After saying that, Ryu's pupils dilated in fear. The next moment, he quickly dressed and ran out of the apartment. And that day, his younger brother was harassed so badly by Tiju that Wani became blind with multiple fractures. Looking at his little brother, who was sitting sadly in the corner of the room with his hands on his knees, Ryu was shocked and angry at himself because he was so weak and pathetic that he couldn't even protect his little brother. And now that he's far from the weak, pathetic loser he is, he will do anything to protect his little brother. And his first mission is to beat up that scoundrel. Then the scene changes, and we see an old factory. And inside it, Tegu was beating someone up badly, asking why they didn't bring him 200,000 won as he ordered them to. Twitching and shaking in pain, the man tries to say something, but only manages to let out another painful groan. Tegu took this as ignoring him, which made him even angrier. He raised his foot and struck the poor man with anger in his eyes. Then he angrily started beating the poor guy again, who had no chance to resist. And what made things even worse was that the attacker was not alone. Tegu's friends stood aside and watched this one-sided beating with laughter, but they were actually tense and scared by Tegu's cruel attitude because he was very unpredictable and very cruel. Even the other high school students were afraid of him. Tegu was 185 centimeters tall and had a very large body for a second-year high school student. Undoubtedly, he was very impressive among his peers and was also famous among gangsters for his fighting skills. After a while, the beating of the man stopped and he started screaming loudly. He scratched his neck and turned to his friends, and complained irritably that he couldn't buy a motorcycle today because he didn't get the money he was supposed to get today. His group of friends immediately tensed up when they saw the angry man approaching them. Unfortunately, their fears came true when Taegu went to his gang and asked if any of them knew a person from whom he could borrow money to buy a motorcycle. The gang was shocked and every one of them started scratching the back of their heads. Then one of their members suddenly remembered a name, and he turned to Taegu and asked why they shouldn't call that tall man with curly hair who belonged to their group. When Taegu realized who he was talking about, a wicked smile came to his lips. He then said that he planned to call him today anyway because he felt he deserved a good beating as a New Year's gift. They were wondering how they would defeat Ryu. Taegu said with an annoyed face that Ryu is basically homeless and they won't take anything from him. He then decided that once he comes, he will beat him badly and blind him for being so poor. Then suddenly a footstep echoed in the empty factory, and at the entrance, Ryu confidently entered the building while Wani hesitantly followed him. The goons started laughing on seeing Wani and said that they were about to call him, and he is here. He came on his own. Then Taegu got angry on seeing another person standing confidently next to Wani, and started wondering who he was. Then he shouted loudly and cursed Wani that how dare he bring someone without his permission. But Ryu stood quietly and stared at them, and Wani started shaking with fear. Taegu got even more angry on seeing this silent behavior. He then angrily walked slowly towards Wani and asked him if he had brought any other boys with him. But before he could say anything, Ryu walked forward with a smile on his face and confidently said that he was his older brother. Taegu laughed, then turned to Wani, who was standing behind his older brother, and reminded him that he had already told him to mind his language if he didn't want to get beaten up. And now he had come to his older brother's hideout to take revenge, with a false smile on his face. Taegu clenched his fists and told Wani that he and his brother would die today. Then, turning to one of his retainers, he nodded and ordered them to take action. The latter, without realizing what he was about to do, nodded in agreement with a happy smile. While Taegu stood back with his arms crossed, his subordinate slowly walked towards Ryu and began taunting Wani, asking if his brother had ever even killed an ant before. Now, standing in front of Ryu Min, he compared his height to Ryu's and said how short he was, and that Ryu was even shorter than Wani. But before he could finish his words, a huge punch came flying towards him, and the next thing he saw was that he was lying on the ground, bleeding from his face and mouth. Seeing his friend's defeat, the other boy immediately pounced on Ryu, intending to punch him. However, Ryu dodged his attack and struck his jaw with his own fist. The blow was so strong that the boy let out a painful scream and flew a few meters away, causing some debris to fall behind him. At the same time, the first boy, who had already recovered from the first blow, as well as the remaining bald boy who was screaming angrily for him to die, pounced on Ryu again. However, this combined attack did not work at all as they were hit with 2 blows on their faces and both of them screamed in pain simultaneously. Tagai stood watching his comrades getting beaten up and crawling on the floor with painful groans. He then walked away from the fallen members, came up to Ryu and asked Ryu with a smile that maybe he was so confident because he must have received boxing training from somewhere. But this was not enough to defeat him, because no matter how skilled Ryu was, he would not be able to overcome the difference in weight class. Tagai was 185 centimeters tall and had a strong body, while Ryu was 165 centimeters tall and looked weak. The difference in weight classes was obvious, and anyone could predict the outcome of a fight between the two without even looking at them. However, to Taegu's surprise, Ryu didn't seem scared at all. With a smile on his face, he turned to the big man and asked him if he wasn't watching the news. Hearing this nonsense, Taegu charged towards Ryu with his punch, but to his surprise, Ryu easily dodged it. Taegu then fired a continuous barrage of punches and kicks, but Ryu easily dodged them all. Now his vision was blurring, and he was breathing heavily, angrily wondering why he couldn't land a single blow on Ryu, even as he gritted his teeth. At the same time, Ryu's fist glowed with a blue aura. He then turned to Taegu and said that if he had been watching the news, he would have known that attacking a player like him so easily was tantamount to suicide. The next moment he threw a punch with lightning speed that hit Taegu's jaw and knocked him backwards, but it was not enough to defeat him. Taegu once again attacked Ryu with a fierce scream. However, To his surprise and confusion, his blow did not hit the target and Ryu suddenly disappeared. Unable to believe what was happening, he tried to turn back with an expression of fear on his face. Before he could react, Ryu threw another punch at Tegu's face. With a painful groan, Tegu rubbed his nose, and then blood started flowing from his mouth and nose, and one of his teeth broke. Looking at his broken teeth, he screamed loudly in anger and declared that today he would kill Ryu. It would not be a peaceful death. He intended to torture him before delivering the final blow. With determination, he punched Ryu-min once again, but this time Ryu didn't dodge the attack. Instead, he grabbed Tegu's arm, which startled Tegu. Ryu began to rain punches on Tegu, much to Tegu's shock. Tegu saw that Ryu was just punching him in the face, trying to humiliate him in front of his gang. This realization fueled his anger even more, and he moved towards Ryu again. But this time, Ryu kicked Tegu really hard. Tegu flew off and collided with the wall. The kick was so hard that Tegu was holding his neck and had trouble breathing. With broken teeth, shaking in pain and drooling, Ryu slowly walked towards Tegu and asked with a cold look, "Does it hurt a lot?" Ryu was filled with anger because when he was underage, he had seen his younger brother being brutally bullied and beaten so many times. Those memories were haunting him, and he was unable to forget them. As Ryu slowly approached Tegu, he panicked, unable to stop him, even after telling him not to come near him. Tegu was still holding his neck and pleaded with Ryu not to hit him anymore, saying he was sorry. However, Ryu did not continue the physical assault. Instead, with a warm smile on his face, he gently held Tegu's hands. He further said, Tegu shouldn't have messed with his brother. With a blow, a crackling sound echoed through the factory and Tegu screamed in pain. Ryu had broken all of his fingers and Tegu was in great pain holding his hand. But the suffering didn't end there. Ryu grabbed Tegu's other hand, which scared Tegu. With another blow, he broke Tegu's other 5 fingers and Tegu began to scream like crazy. Seeing this brutal scene, all of Tegu's subordinates ran away in fear and even Wani, who was watching, found it too horrible to bear. With a serious expression, Ryu warned Tegu not to touch a single hair on Wani's head. Crying, Tegu promised that he would never do that. But then Ryu began to smile with a very happy expression. He grabbed Tegu again, and said that Tegu might change his mind in the future, so he must make sure that Tegu never messes with him. With this, he also broke Tegu's wrist and Tegu screamed in pain for hours. After some time we see Ryu walking, his younger brother hesitantly calling his name. Ryu stopped and Wani asked in surprise how Ryu did that, and if he learned any kind of martial arts in another world. Hearing this, Ryu smiled a little and replied that as stated in the news, players can use their abilities in the real world. As an example, he pointed to his hand, which was glowing with a bright golden light. The next moment, a black dagger appeared in his hand, which shocked Wani with surprise. Wani got very excited when the dagger magically appeared in Ryu's hand and asked with curious eyes how Ryu did that. Ryu replied with a kind smile that this is one of the skills he got from the other world, and all other players can use it. Then, while Ryu was putting the dagger back into his inventory, Wani remembered what happened at the factory and asked in the same surprised voice if Ryu had learned all his new fighting techniques from that other world. Ryu replied that he had not learned any fighting techniques, and that he was able to do so because he was faster than them. His dexterity stat had reached 11th level, and he said that normal people's agility stat was about 3 points, while professional athletes could reach 10 points, and he was 11, so now he was as fast as Usain Bolt. Wani came chasing his brother and asked what would happen if he leveled up, and Ryu replied that he didn't know, because he hadn't reached that level. And only by leveling up could he get that answer, but deep inside he knew the answer. In his 13th life, Ryu told his younger brother everything about himself that was going to happen in the future, and that he was a regressive person. Because of this, Wani became a target of other players and was kidnapped by one of the players. Even though he was able to take revenge, he didn't want to feel those feelings again, nor make his younger brother suffer for it. Turning to his younger brother who was chasing him, he told himself that he had to prepare himself to protect him in the upcoming battle between the players. Wani's stomach then growled and Ryu asked if he was hungry and suggested they have a nice snack together. Hearing this, Wani nodded happily with shining eyes. The two brothers then entered the nearest store. Ryu immediately headed towards the ATM. When Wani saw this, she asked where he was going. He said the noodles were in another place, but Ryu turned around and asked him to wait for a few minutes. He went to the ATM and inserted his card. He looked at the screen and thought to himself that this was all he could save by that time. His balance was $133,134.10, which was about $100. After choosing a transaction amount of $100,001, he pressed the button to confirm the transaction. Wani was shocked to see the huge bill in his elder brother's hand and asked why he needed so much money. To which Ryu replied that he needed it for something. The two then reached an area selling premium food items and Ryu asked Wani why he didn't choose anything from here. Wani got annoyed hearing this and said that everything is very expensive here. Even the cheapest food here costs $20, but Ryu reassured his younger brother that it was okay because it was New Year and they should eat good food to enjoy the day. Hesitantly, Wani asked if they spent money on expensive food. Would they have enough money for living expenses? Ryu smiled and replied not to worry about money and just buy it because he has a way to make a lot of money. Wani then excitedly picked up a pack of pork belly meat and said that he always wanted to taste it and today he would finally get to taste it. From a distance, Ryu was looking warmly at his happy younger brother. Ryu then walked up to Wani, who was glowing with happiness, and suggested that they go to a restaurant together sometime and order some roast beef. But Wani saw Ryu smiling the happiest of all and replied that there was no need for that, as he had enough from what they bought today. Seeing his brother happy, Ryu told himself to wait for just 5 days. After that, he can feed his beloved brother as much as he wants. He will give his little brother so much meat that he will get tired of eating it. Then the scene changes and we see Wani taking a piece of meat with his chopsticks and placing it on a spoonful of rice. As he took a bite and chewed it, he said with a happy face that it is very tasty, really tasty. Ryu was really happy to see his little brother happy. Then suddenly Ryu stood up from his seat and told Wani to stay here because he had something very important to do. Wani asked him where he was going, but Ryu told Wani that he would know in a second. Ryu then came back after a while and slammed his hand on the table loudly and placed his pen on it. Confused, Wani then saw several lottery tickets and asked Ryu in an uncertain tone if they were all lottery tickets. Ryu replied, "Yes, they are." As he was opening the cap of his pen, Wani asked in a concerned tone how many tickets Ryu had bought. Wani asked him where he was going, but Ryu told Wani that he would know in a second. Ryu then returned after a while and slammed his hand on the table loudly and placed his pen on it. Confused, Wani then saw several lottery tickets and asked Ryu in an uncertain voice if all of these were lottery tickets. Ryu replied, "These are." As he was opening the cap of his pen, Wani asked in a worried voice how many tickets Ryu bought, and Ryu replied, 20. Wani panicked upon hearing this, realizing that his elder brother had spent all his savings on a few lottery tickets, and he worriedly asked Ryu how he could do that, and if this was the way to earn money that Ryu was talking about, as he must know that it is almost impossible to win them. However, his elder brother calmly told him to trust him and just keep watching. He then took a pen and started circling the numbers on the lottery tickets. Wani was shocked when he saw that Ryu was circling the numbers on all the lottery tickets. A worried Wani asked Ryu why he circled the numbers on each ticket, and Ryu replied with a smile that he did so because those numbers were going to win. Then the scene changes and we see the brothers sitting in their house with the lottery tickets on the table. Ryu was calmly flipping through his phone while his brother was nervously holding the phone in one hand and holding his head up with the other. The lottery draw was announced from his phone. Wani was biting his nails in worry, watching the live broadcast on his phone screen. He felt that if they didn't win even one lottery, they would be in trouble because they had wasted all their money. As the live broadcast began, Wani became more nervous and Ryu scolded him to stop being so nervous and to stop biting his nails. Wani said that with that much money, they could have bought better food. The hosts then announced that the first lucky number was 3 and Wani stopped biting her nails. The second number was 18 and the third was 9. Wani was shocked as he saw that these numbers matched the numbers on the lottery ticket bought by Ryu. When all the numbers were revealed, Ryu matched the numbers on the lottery ticket to the phone screen. He became emotional. Looking from the phone to the ticket and then back again, happily he asked Ryu if it was all a dream. Ryu replied that it was not a dream and told Wani that he had told him that he had a way to make money. Realizing that it was not a dream, Wani raised her hand holding the lottery ticket and shouted happily that they had won the first prize. Ryu then asked Wani to stop shouting, as if the neighbors might have heard them. They might get in trouble, and Wani stopped shouting mid-sentence. Ryu then warmly asked Wani if he was happy, and Wani replied that of course he was happy and asked Ryu if he was not happy. Ryu replied with a smile that he was happy, but he did not look excited at all. He told that he was also like Wani when he won the lottery for the 15th time, but after repeating it so many times, it became like a mandatory process or annual event. Ryu then told himself that he had to make money as quickly as possible because the economy would drop like crazy after 9 billion deaths and item trading between players. But the surprise did not end there. Ryu won the first prize for all 20 tickets. Now holding all 20 winning tickets, Wani was in shock and was asking Ryu that it still did not feel real and how much the total amount would be. Ryu replied that he didn't know, but then smilingly said that the amount was so huge that it would shake the whole world. Ryu got off the bus and walked down the street. He quickly saw a tall building in front of him. It was the main branch of Non-Hyop Bank where he was to receive his prize. Normally, he would have been nervous before entering, but maybe it was because this was the 85th time he was receiving the grand prize. He was not nervous at all. The bank was full of customers, but none of them were lottery winners. Ryu went to the front desk in the lobby of the new building, and then he told the employee on duty that he was here to receive his lottery winning amount for first place. Hearing this, the employee smiled and congratulated him on his win. At the same time, he thought to himself how the boy standing in front of him, who looked like a student, could receive the prize for first place. Pushing his thoughts away and searching for something on the computer, the employee then asked Ryu where he bought his ticket, to which he replied that it was at the Yonhui branch. The employee was shocked to hear the man's words. She couldn't believe what he had just said. His mind immediately went to the conversation he had with his colleague who had told him that this time someone had won the first prize in 115 games and all the first prizes. However, his superior had given him strict orders that whenever that customer comes, he has to treat him like a VIP guest. The employee's thoughts were interrupted by Ryu's voice, asking him if he was okay, and the employee nervously replied that he was fine and told Ryu to just wait a minute. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Ryu, who smiled and thanked him for waiting. After shaking Ryu's hand, he introduced himself as Guanjun and said he was the bank's president. Ryu simply said his name was Ryu. The president said that since he won the first place prize, he should congratulate him in person. Ryu smiled and thanked the man for his congratulations. The man then offered to drive him to the place where he could collect his winnings, and asked him to follow him. When they reached a door with a board that read Lottery Ticket Sales Team, the president announced that they had reached the place. As soon as they walked in, they were immediately greeted by a female employee who stood up and bowed to greet the president. Seeing a young man next to the president, she wondered who it could be. But she didn't have to guess, because the next moment the president himself introduced the boy, saying that he was the first place winner and that he had come to receive his prize. Then he asked them to make sure that their guests felt comfortable. The woman, surprised to see the boy talking comfortably with the president, could not believe that in front of her was a man who had won first place in 115 games. Recovering from her excitement and doubt, she told herself that she should keep calm and do her best to satisfy the customer. After greeting him, she invited Ryu to sit down with a smile on his face. He sat comfortably in the chair right in front of her. She then asked him if he would like to have a drink, but Ryu simply replied that he would not, and said that he wanted to get straight to work and collect his prize. After hearing Ryu's answer, the employee did not take any more time and asked him to give her the tickets so that she could confirm that he was the winner. Ryu immediately handed her a stack of winning tickets that he had brought with him. Looking at the tickets, the woman could not believe that he had bet everything on one combination. This could only mean one thing. Either the man had decided to risk everything or he could see the future. After confirming, the employee said that everything was fine and he could take the prize for first place. However, Ryu's next question about how much he would get left the girl stunned, as it was absurd to even name such numbers. After a second of silence, he replied in a trembling voice that his prize was 22.5 billion won, which is equivalent to $16 million. After receiving the prize, everything happened very quickly. First, he started looking for a place. That same night, he opened a stock account because he had information about the future. He knew that the price of Bitcoin would increase by 500% next month, so he planned to invest his money in it as well. After returning home, Ryu showed his younger brother pictures of his new house and asked him if he liked it. Wani happily replied that it was wonderful, and said that he had never seen such a big and beautiful house in person. But Wani was confused about one thing. He asked Ryu why he signed a rental agreement when they had enough money to buy a house. Ryu replied that he had no more money because he had spent it all. This statement of his made Wani stop right there, and Ryu innocently said that he had invested all the money in Bitcoin. When his younger brother heard this, he froze right there again, unable to understand how his brother could say so easily that he had invested $15 billion in Bitcoin. Ryu Min walked up to his younger brother, who had turned into a statue, and patted him on the shoulder, reassuring him that he did not do this without thinking, and that he knew that the price of Bitcoin was going to rise. He told Wani not to worry. Then, hugging Wani, he said not to worry, because he had a dream, and in that dream he saw new numbers of lottery tickets, and they could always make money through the lottery. After his elder brother's words, the naive Wani's eyes lit up with admiration. He believed everything Ryu said. Realizing this, he immediately grabbed Ryu's shoulders and began shaking him excitedly, telling him to never forget them. Ryu somehow broke free from his younger brother's grip, thinking to himself that he couldn't forget them, even if he wanted to after repeating it countless times. Ryu then turned to his brother and suggested they eat outside before heading out. Wani asked in confusion where they were going, and Ryu replied with a smile on his face that they were moving to their new home today. At the same time, in some unknown location, Young Min was punching and made a huge hole in the wall, and then with a villainous smile. He told himself that pumping all the points into strength was the right decision. Swinging his fist at the last wall again, he told himself that he was also able to obtain a power rune that doubled his strength. As he continued to punch the wall, he began to laugh maniacally, saying that now, with this powerful fist, no one would be able to stop him, and the veins in his hand began to foam as he clenched his fist, ready to start another round of punching the wall. Then the scene changed, and we see that Young Min is now in front of Ryu's door, slamming the door and shouting Ryu's name. When he got no response, he said that at first he thought Ryu had died in the first round itself, but later he found that his name was not in the list of the dead and Ryu was also ignoring all his calls. Then Young Min's face turned red with anger. He felt that he can never forget the way Ryu stared at him before kidnapping him, and he will get satisfaction only when he beats him to death with his own hands. Then Young Min started slamming Ryu's door continuously and said that if he is hiding inside, then he will break the door and come inside now. However, a voice stopped Young Min, and it was an old man standing on the stairs who turned towards him and asked him what he was doing at that door. Young Min asked the old man if he should mind his own business, since Young Min was not slamming the old man's door. Upon hearing this, the old man, while fixing his glasses, said that he was in fact the owner of the house, which shocked Young Min. Then he asked Young Min again if he had come to visit a friend. For a moment he was stunned, not knowing what to say. He quickly adapted himself to the situation, smiled, and said that he had in fact come to visit his friend. Then he asked the old man if he could open the door for him. Young Min said that he had suddenly lost contact with his friend, and now he did not know how to contact him. The old man was shocked to hear this. He then told Young Min that it was now an empty apartment, since the student who lived there had moved out. Hearing this, Young Min immediately asked the house owner if he knew when and where the student had gone. But the old man replied that he had gone today, but he did not know where he had gone. Young Min was furious upon hearing the old man's reply, and he clenched his fists in anger, wondering how he had gone without telling anyone. Then the scene changes, and we see the two arriving at the huge glass building, which was the size of a skyscraper. Wani said in surprise and admiration. Covering his eyes with his hand to protect them from the blazing sun, he said with shining eyes and amazement that the building was very tall. He was so innocent that he was even surprised to see that the entrance door was revolving. He was still surprised when the female employee gave them entry cards while his elder brother confirmed their identities. Wani continued to be surprised that there was even a security guard here. Pushing himself to his room in the elevator, he turned to Ryu and admiringly said that this place is really amazing. Stepping out of the elevator, they headed towards their room. When they reached their room, Wani exclaimed again in surprise how big it was. His brother replied with a nonchalant face that it was about 330 square meters. This figure shocked his younger brother because their previous apartment was dozens of times smaller. Looking at the apartment, Wani, still unable to believe that they were going to live here, asked, "Isn't it too big for just the two of them?" Ryu replied that they had a lot of money and they should enjoy their lives.
Wani then asked Ryu how much it cost him on rent.
And Ryu said it cost about 22 million won per month, which is about $17,000 per month. The rent alone made his younger brother's head spin. He thought to himself that just a while ago he was worried about the price of meat, which seemed too expensive at the time, and now they were spending so much on rent alone. Behind his older brother, who was still looking at the apartment they were going to live in, Wani asked him if they could choose something cheaper. Hearing this, Ryu shook his head negatively and replied that the more expensive the services, the greater the security, which was their priority after all. On the first of every month, all players would faint as their souls would go to the other world, leaving their real bodies vulnerable, and this was the period that was the most vulnerable for all players. During this time, they became vulnerable to disasters such as fire or earthquakes. But the biggest threat was not the cataclysm, but assassins hired by other players. And so, when the time comes, players must be prepared to put their bodies in as safe a place as possible. After finishing his thoughts, Ryu turned to his brother, who had already settled down a bit, and asked if he liked the house. Wani enthusiastically replied that it was beautiful and it seemed like he was still dreaming. Ryu then humbly said that he was glad that Wani was happy and that he liked it. Suddenly Wani's face became a little sad. Then he apologized to his older brother in an uncertain and worried tone. Ryu looked at him in confusion, not understanding what he was apologizing for. Wani said in a troubled tone that Ryu would be transferred to another world next month and he would have to fight for his life. Knowing this, how could Wani enjoy and be happy? But this gloomy atmosphere was broken by Ryu, who patted his brother on the shoulder and asked him why he was so sad. He further said, "Do you think I won't be able to come back from the next round?" But Wani said nothing, and Ryu jokingly told him to stop thinking nonsense and follow him. He had heard that the shopping hall on the second floor has very delicious food, so they should go there and eat. Wani agreed, still worried. Then suddenly a message came on Ryu's phone. After reading the message, he realized that it was from the young men, and Ryu kept ignoring it. Putting his phone in his coat pocket, he thought of meeting the young men. The next day, a sleepy Ryu came out of the bedroom and was surprised to see Wani fully dressed, preparing to go somewhere. When he asked him where he was going, Wani happily replied that he had ordered some rice cakes and was going to pick them up. Still deep in sleep, Ryu didn't immediately realize what he was talking about. As far as he could remember, this had never happened before. Although regression didn't guarantee that everything would happen exactly as it had happened in the past, it was a significant change. Turning to his younger brother, who was already packing his things and about to leave, Ryu asked him why he decided to buy them. To which Wani replied that he was going to give them to the neighbors as gifts to celebrate their arrival because he thought it would be good manners. Ryu thoughtfully replied that it was a great idea to have a good relationship with neighbors. Pleased with his elder brother's praise, Wani said that he could deliver them himself, and said that Ryu could stay here and rest. However, Ryu disagreed, responding that they should deliver the gifts together. He then asked Wani to wait for a while he went to change his clothes. After a while, they rang the bell of the first apartment, from which a voice came a few seconds later and asked who it was. With a smile on his face and a cake in his hands, Wani told them that they were his neighbors who had recently moved here and had now come to welcome them. Opening the door, a middle-aged woman also greeted them with a smile. Then, noticing that they both looked alike, she asked if they were brothers, to which Wani replied with a smile that they were brothers. Giving the woman a rice cake, he advised her to eat them while they were still hot. She happily took the cake and thanked the brothers. Then, after some more time, they continued to greet their neighbors, give them gifts, and after an hour they were heading to the last place after greeting the neighbors. It was the top floor and the most expensive and the most secure. While Wani was ringing the doorbell, Ryu was thinking to himself that there must be a rich family or a celebrity in such a place. After ringing the bell for a while, no one answered, which made him think that maybe no one was home. When there was no response after pressing the bell once again, he turned to his elder brother who was standing near the wall and said a little confused that it seems like no one is here. Looking back, they were about to head to the elevator. They were about to head towards the elevator, but turned around when they heard the door opening. The person they saw the next moment startled Wani, while Ryu, although a little surprised, didn't change his face much. In front of them was a girl who was beautiful in appearance and dressed in exquisite clothes, looking at them incomprehensibly. When Wani saw Eren, he almost fell silent, and even felt a little embarrassed. He couldn't help himself and blurted out how beautiful she looked, like an angel come to life, while Ryu was just staring at her, thinking about the angel he had killed without any response. But before the two of them could say anything, this boy dressed in black appeared right in front of Eren. His tone was really rude. He asked the brothers who they were, and he also said if they were his fans. This really pissed Ryu off, and he got a little upset. So he crossed his arms to make it clear that they aren't fans, and that they just came to the building today. Meanwhile, Wani was feeling a little embarrassed. Then Wani, who was very happy, tried to offer a rice cake as a friendly gesture. But Eren's bodyguard didn't like it at all. He interrupted Wani and clearly told her that they didn't want anything. Most of all, he told the brothers to mind their own business and not bother them. With that, he just turned on his heel and walked away, casually saying that Eren doesn't like sweet things. The brothers felt very insulted, that's for sure. After that, the bodyguard opened the door to Eren's house and asked her to come in. She followed him, but she couldn't stop herself from giving the brothers an apologetic look. Now Ryu was getting quite angry about the whole matter. He might not know who these people were, but the man's rude behavior was bothering him a lot. On the other hand, Wani was still standing there, almost speechless. And it wasn't just because he felt insulted. It was because he realized that the woman he was staring at was none other than his idol, Eren. His eyes lit up with joy, and he wasn't sure if he was looking at the real her. While Ryu was confused, wondering who she was, being an unmarried virgin and a housewife, he didn't know much about famous people. Wani then excitedly explains to Ryu that she is Eren, and Ryu asks, confused, who Eren is. The scene then changes and we see Eren sitting on her couch, watching the news on her phone. The news is filled with reports about how some famous actors died mysteriously from heart attacks overnight, and she recognizes that some of them were her friends. She feels a sense of fear as she wonders what in the world is going on. She puts her phone on the bed, still filled with worry and fear, and starts thinking about how she barely survived this period, all because of her bodyguard. The thought of killing those demonic ghosts with her own hands is still scaring her. To lighten the mood, she jokingly thinks that if she died today, her name would be in the news. Seeing Eren's worried expression, her bodyguard asks what's on his mind. She brushes it off at first, but the bodyguard sits beside her and gently encourages her to share her thoughts, reassuring her that he's always here to listen. With a sad expression, Eren confesses that she's thinking about how dramatically the world has changed and how she might die in the next round. Hearing this, the bodyguard reassures her, emphasizing that his job is to protect her and that she can trust him. Eren smiles warmly in response, and expresses genuine gratitude for her unwavering support. Seeing Eren's worried expression, her bodyguard asks what's on her mind. At first she ignores it, but the bodyguard sits beside her and gently encourages her to share her thoughts, reassuring her that he's always here to listen. With a serious expression, Eren confesses that she's thinking about how quickly the world has changed and how the next round could be her death. Hearing this, the bodyguard reassures her, emphasizing that his job is to protect her, and that she can trust him. Aaron smiles warmly in response and expresses genuine gratitude for his unwavering support. Aaron explains that when the company first assigned her a bodyguard, she thought he was only there to keep an eye on her. However, she admits that without his presence, she wouldn't have survived the first round. She shares a light-hearted moment with her bodyguard, mentioning that the rice cakes the new neighbors brought looked delicious. But her bodyguard replied that she would become ugly and fat if she ate such things. Aaron replied that it was okay to take the cake, and that they should not eat it. The bodyguard was very rude to the two brothers, because they might feel bad and insulted. The bodyguard replied that he knows all about people like them. They were just trying to be friendly for their own selfish reasons, and that if they had taken the rice cakes, they would have harassed them constantly. But Aaron, remembering the faces of Wani, an innocent boy, and Ryu, a Chad, thought that they did not seem like bad people to her. Aaron then notices something about one of the two neighbors. One of them looks old, possibly over 15 years old, which means he must have killed 100 ghosts to survive. The bodyguard replied that he must have done that, and that's why he's alive. Aaron got a little nervous again. She said how amazing Ryu is. To think how someone who went through such a cruel and hellish experience can look so calm. Hearing this, the bodyguard laughed and replied that killing 100 ghosts wasn't that difficult, and those who don't kill them are just idiots. But Aaron knew deep inside that it wasn't easy for normal people to kill 100 ghosts. The bodyguard was able to do it because he was a skilled fighter and had received professional training. She then thought about that boy named Black Scythe. In front of her, her bodyguard looked like a child. Black Scythe was simply too powerful, and she almost felt bad for the ghosts, seeing how brutally Black Scythe killed them. She then wondered who Black Scythe would be in real life, and what he would look like in real life. The scene changes, and we see that a month has passed, and it is January 31st. Ryu is now in his bed, and Wani is holding his older brother's hand worriedly, saying that he has to promise him that he will come back alive no matter what. Ryu smiled and replied that he should not worry, because he is too strong to die, even if he wants to, and not even a god can kill him. Hearing these words, Wani was still worried. Ryu then patted Wani's head and told him not to worry too much and eat Ryu's soul. Ryu reaches the other world and falls asleep. When Wani wakes up from his sleep, Ryu is standing next to him. With that, Ryu's vision turns blue, and he leaves again with the rest. As all the survivors headed towards the dungeon, a wave of panic overtook them. Some people started screaming in fear, while others just looked around, trying to get their heads together. Around the place that looked more like a jungle than anything else. Then one of the girls in the group saw Ryu and called out to him as the #1 ranked boy in the last round. Ryu stood, lost in meditation, and he noticed that whispers about him had begun to spread, which was a good sign for the plans he had in mind. He wanted everyone to recognize who was running the show. Ryu's eyes briefly met the young man's, but before he could consider it, a voice filled the area. Yes, it was another angel, and man, she was so pretty to look at. But this was a different angel, and questions were buzzing through the crowd about what happened to the previous angel. The new angel flashed a friendly smile and explained that the previous angel had disappeared for unknown reasons, and she was here to take over. At seeing her smile, the crowd's nervousness began to calm down. This angel might not be as much of a nightmare as the last one, but that hope was short-lived. Her smile turned into something sinister, and touching her lips softly, she let out a creepy laugh. She was very happy, ready to have some fun after a long time. With a smooth nod, she handed over the new quest. They had to choose a zone leader in 3 hours. Seeing this, everyone got confused, but then they noticed that everyone could pass this round, unlike the previous round where half of them died. The fairy saw the confused look on the players' faces, and with a smile, decided to break the quest for them. She explained that this round was not about fighting. Everyone could pass it by simply choosing a zone leader. The chosen leader would have the power to order anyone in their zone to do anything they want, crawl on the ground or die. Isn't that an amazing skill? She asked, looking at the player. As she gave the details, a boy with green hair was listening attentively, and the other boy, who had a tattoo on his neck, and who was all muscled up, looked quite upset. The angel said that in 3 hours she would be back for a vote to decide the leader. The green-haired boy, trembling a little, raised his hand and asked if it was really that easy. Just vote for a leader, and they would all come back alive. The angel's smile turned a little devilish as she confirmed it. Just one vote, and then, bang, they would all come back to Earth safe and sound. Now, hearing this, everyone cheered up and began celebrating, saying that no one was going to die this time. From behind, Ryu stood with a serious face. The angel then wished them good luck, and then she disappeared, and the 3-hour timer started. The next moment, the remaining players were still happy, because no one would die today, except for Youngman. He wasn't. He was very angry, and gritting his teeth, he said that he was ready to fight and kill some demons. Seeing Youngman angry, his friend nervously told him to just let it go, because the angels would let them live if they just voted. So why is Youngman complaining so much? Youngman, still angry, replied that he used all his points to get stronger, and now he can't beat anyone, and he's very disappointed. Ryu looked at Youngman from a distance, thinking to himself that in all his 99 lives, Youngman was always the same fiery one. Ryu turned away, saying that he would sort Youngman out when the time was right. Ryu then saw that everyone was discussing who to vote for and what to do, but Ryu said that it wasn't important to him. Then walking towards the forest, it said he had an even more important thing to do, which was to choose a class, the class of a Grim Reaper, the god of death. And to do that, he had to reach level 10 in 3 hours. Just then, a ghost wearing a red hoodie appeared. Ryu's grip on his dagger tightened. He taunted the ghost, daring it to come closer. The ghost attacked, and Ryu, with an expressionless face, cut its neck as easily as a hot knife in butter. Then the system informed that he had gained experience points along with 15 gold, and all his stats had increased by 1% due to the waste of slaughter. Now, standing next to the fallen ghost, Ryu knew what he had to do. He had 3 hours to reach level 10 and choose his class. This was the only way his plan could work. As another gang of ghosts approached, Ryu readied his dagger. He couldn't stop himself from smiling. He watched the ghosts approach like a child waiting for a piece of delicious cake. The next moment, Ryu started a one-sided slaughter of the ghosts. Then, after an hour of threatening the ghosts, Ryu wiped the blood off his face and looked at the time. After an hour passed, he mumbled something to himself and opened his status window. He was surprised to see that he had reached level 9 and had already gained 8 stat points, which was much faster than he expected. Without a second thought, he poured all his points into agility, even though his base stats were pretty much useless, and after having 99 lives, his battle spirit became so strong that his body moves on its own during battle. He needs agility to support his body. Just then, Ryu noticed something and turned around with a serious look. Someone had been following him for quite some time while he was engaged in battle. Usually, he didn't care about distractions because his focus was on the fight, but this was new. This had never happened before in his life, so he thought he should check it out. Then, with a serious look, pointing his bloody dagger towards the bush, Ryu said that he didn't know who they were, but now they had to show themselves. If they didn't come out, they should be prepared for a painful death. As soon as Ryu finished speaking, a beautiful woman with disheveled brown hair came in nervously, raised both her arms, and said that she was here. Upon seeing her, Ryu realized that she was none other than the actress he met on the first floor, of whom his younger brother is a fan, and Ryu wondered why she was following him. He was about to apologize and explain why she was following Ryu, when suddenly someone else jumped into the conversation. It was a familiar person, and it turned out to be the same rude bodyguard from before. He immediately interrupted and apologized and made it clear that they weren't following Ryu for any bad reason. He just wanted Ryu to keep quiet. Ryu looked at the bodyguard's surname, Sangcheol, and his reaction was immediate. His eyes widened as he recognized the name. Sangcheol was the trusted right-hand man of June Rock, the eldest son of Korea's largest corporation, who also went by the terrifying nickname Heavenly Demon. He is one of the people Ryu wants to recruit to his team, as well as a priest who is rumored to have the power to bring the dead back to life. Ryu didn't expect to run into June Rock's right-hand man so soon, and it made him wonder why such a man would be protecting Ah-rin. Then he realized the priestess might be this slender, innocent-looking girl standing in front of him. Keeping his composure, Ryu's voice lowered and he asked them directly why they were following him. They admitted that they had been following him ever since he stepped into the forest. Ah-rin explained that she seemed a little nervous, adding that she had a proposal for him. With a hopeful smile, she said that she wanted to work together with Ryu and asked if they could meet. Hearing this, Ryu smiled and replied that working together meant that both parties were helping each other. Ah-rin replied shakily that it was true, and Ryu said that he didn't think they could help him in any way, so he didn't want to team up with them. In a dry tone, he said that they should stop wasting their time with this nonsense and go back. With that, Ryu turned back and said that he had no desire to team up and started going even deeper into the forest. Well, that was his way of taking revenge on the bodyguard. Then, when Ryu left, the bodyguard got really angry and said that Ryu was really arrogant. But Ah-rin, she just fell to her knees, fainting, saying how intense Ryu's vibe was, like he could bite her at any moment. She then said that she really wanted to be on the same team with Ryu ever since she first saw him fight, but it didn't work out well. The bodyguard, still annoyed, said that he had already told Ah-rin that strong people like him always have big egos, and they prefer to work alone, and they don't like working in a team. Now standing near the ghost corpses, they wondered what to do in the time left before the vote, and they decided to hunt down some ghosts like Ryu so that they can increase their level. Then, when they started going inside the forest, we saw someone following them from the bushes, and Ryu said that he didn't think they could help him in any way, so he didn't want to team up with them. In a harsh tone, she said that they should go and stop wasting their time with this nonsense and turn back. With that, Ryu turned back and said that he had no desire to team up, and started walking deeper into the forest. Well, this was his way of taking revenge on the bodyguard. Then, when Ryu left, the bodyguard was really upset. He said that Ryu was really arrogant. But Ah-rin, she fell to her knees, fainting, murmuring how intense Ryu's vibe was, like he could cut her down at any moment. Then she said she really wanted to be on the same team with Ryu ever since she first saw him fight, but it didn't work out well. The bodyguard, still upset, said that he had already told Ah-rin that strong people like her always have big egos, and they like to work alone, and they don't like working in a team. Now standing near the ghost corpses, they thought about what to do in the remaining time before the vote, and they decided to hunt down some ghosts like Ryu so they could raise their level. Then, as they started to go inside the forest, we saw someone following them from the bushes. The scene then changes, and we see Ryu continuing to mercilessly kill the goblins while the goblins try to save their lives. After killing goblins for an hour, a group of gnolls approached Ryu, and upon seeing them, Ryu gave a big, bright smile and said, "Looks like something delicious has come your way." Then, when the group of wolves attacked Ryu simultaneously, Ryu killed them like vegetables in a single blow, and their torn body parts started falling like rain from the sky. With that, Ryu finally reached level 10. The system informed Ryu that he could access the shop as soon as he reached level 10. Then, a hidden quest to change class appeared before the voting started. If Ryu changed his class today, he would get a 50% discount on today's items in the shop. Ryu explained that everyone could choose which class they wanted after reaching level 10, but no one knew how to choose a class. For warrior, one had to kill 30 demons in less than an hour, and one could become a berserker after fighting demons while bleeding for an hour, and so on. And after grinding continuously for God knows how long, Ryu gained this knowledge. After that, Ryu held the fairy's special juice in his hand. He began to absorb it, and a bright yellow light surrounded Ryu. The system informed Ryu that he had changed his class to Grim Reaper, and he got 3 unique abilities. First, when he wields the sickle, his attack increases by 2 times. Second, when he fights at night, his speed increases by 50%. And finally, at night, all of his senses are greatly enhanced. But that wasn't enough, so the system gave Ryu a Grim Reaper sickle to change his class, making him the first in the entire world. Then the system informed Ryu that he had moved up from the beginner rank to the apprentice rank. Ryu informed that there are a total of 6 ranks, starting with beginner, then apprentice, then regular, then expert, then master, then grandmaster. And with each rank comes a unique skill related to the class. As soon as Ryu reached the apprentice rank, he acquired the skill Seal of Death. Using it, he can place a seal on a target and inflict double the damage. After combining it with the 2x damage of his weapon, the Grim Reaper Sickle, he can inflict 4x damage. He also gained the skill of Tracking, which enables him to find the location of any person, provided he remembers the person's face or nickname. Oh boy, I wish I had this skill to track my crush. Now fully equipped, the first person Ryu thought of using his skill on was Youngmin. He used his skill to track him, and the system informed him that Youngmin was 190 meters away, with an arrow indicating the direction. So Ryu began to follow the arrow with an amused smile. The scene changes, and we see an exhausted Eren struggling to stay on her feet. She falls to the ground, and when she tries to stand up, her whole body shakes. She's in a lot of pain and tells her bodyguard that she can't run anymore. The bodyguard, who is hurting himself and panicking, helps her to her feet. She stands there, saying that the arrow wounds are killing her. The bodyguard, still scared, speculates, maybe if they can last an hour without dying, their real bodies won't be harmed. But before Eren can respond, they hear a voice that stuns them. It's Youngmin and his crew. Youngmin is smiling as if he's got the upper hand, telling them that they won't be able to run away today. The bodyguard looks like he's ready to give up. He thinks he can do it. Don't die for this damned woman. He keeps his dagger ready. However, since it seems there is no option left but to fight. Youngmin sees the dagger and calls the bodyguard, an old man, asking if he really wants to fight them. He then points to his back, shows how many friends he has, and asks the bodyguard if he's blind so he can't see them all. The bodyguard yells angrily, wanting to know why Youngmin is doing this and what he's gonna get out of this. Youngmin just smiles, that creepy smile, and says he's gonna get something really good, which shocks them both. Youngmin goes on to say that he'll take the woman behind him. Since he's not interested in men, he can go, and he won't do anything to the bodyguard. Youngmin only wants the woman who looks like the actress Eren. Then Youngmin's friends saw a woman who looked like Eren. They didn't care if she was real or not. In this world, where they can feel pain, they thought they can also feel pleasure, so they wanted to have some fun with Eren. Eren got scared hearing this. Youngmin then tried to make a deal with the bodyguard. He said that if he handed over Eren, he could run away without a scratch, and they would return Eren without any harm after their fun. He said that everyone would be happy this way. The bodyguard got confused. If he had known that they were after Eren from the beginning, he would have left and saved his life. After all, he was in this job for the money and his life was more valuable than any job. But the fear of Heavenly Demon getting angry if he failed in his duty to protect him made up his mind. He got ready to fight. Seeing this, Youngmin found fun at the old man's readiness to fight. The bodyguard tried to argue, saying that what they were planning was a crime, but Youngmin just laughed it off. "Who will punish us?" he joked. "No one knows what we really look like or who we are in real life." With their backs against the wall, the bodyguard and Eren prepared themselves, trying to think of what their next move would be. Then someone else appears out of nowhere, and it is none other than the god of death, Ryu, who is resting under a tree, watching the entire confrontation. Youngmin looked at Ryu and panic flashed across his face, wondering what he was doing there. Ryu then asked Eren what they were doing there, but before he could answer, Youngmin tried to tell Ryu to mind his own business with his usual attitude. Ryu interrupted him and asked, "Did I ask you?" The bodyguard quickly told Ryu everything, about how Youngmin attacked them, and that they wanted to have some fun with Eren. Upon hearing this, Ryu stared at Youngmin and asked if it was true. Youngmin replied with his stoic attitude that whether it was true or not, Ryu should just mind his own business. Ryu was fed up with Youngmin's nonsense. In a deep voice, Ryu said that whether it was his job or not was none of Youngmin's business, and he should mind his own business. Next, he summoned his red, bloody sickle with a terrifying aura that shocked everyone. Now, with one hand in his pocket and the other hand holding his large sickle, giving off a bloody red aura, Ryu spoke in a deep voice. He made it clear that he would not let Youngmin go unharmed, especially when he knew that Youngmin intended to harm someone. Eren and his bodyguard stood behind Ryu, speechless. Youngmin gritted his teeth when he saw Ryu come to Eren's aid. Eren and his bodyguard expressed their gratitude to Ryu for saving them. However, Ryu didn't play the hero out of the goodness of his heart. He had his own motives. Turning back, he explained that by saving the heavenly demon's right arm, they would be indebted to him. Ryu believed that this could help him fulfill his future plans. Plus, he already had plans to take care of Youngmin, which was like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. As Ryu slowly approached Youngmin, he became afraid. In a trembling voice, Youngmin hesitantly warned Ryu not to get close to him, threatening to kill him. Seeing the scared look on Youngmin's face, Ryu smiled slyly, teasingly asking if Youngmin didn't want to fall, mentioning that he was eager to test his powers. So guys, today's goal is 3,000 likes. Youngmin, annoyed and scared, wondered who in their right mind would try to pick a fight Ryu, the one who slaughtered goblins like vegetables and ranked first in all the regions. Before Youngmin could say anything, a realization struck him. However, Ryu broke the silence, suggesting that if Youngmin was scared and didn't want to fight, there was one thing he could do. Youngmin, confused, asked what, and Ryu, arms crossed and a smirk on his face, replied that he should get down on his knees, beg for mercy, and bark like a dog. Only then would Ryu consider letting him go. Youngmin, bewildered, thought Ryu wanted to humiliate him in front of everyone. Turning back to glare at his buddies, he realized he couldn't do this. He couldn't beg in front of them. Now, Youngmin was really pissed, seeing Ryu's smiling face. Although he wanted to avoid fighting Ryu at all costs, for some reason, just looking at Ryu made him increasingly furious. Then he got an idea. Recognizing that he was no longer his previous self, he remembered how he punched the wall and destroyed it, showcasing his superhuman strength. Youngmin, thinking he could land a punch on Ryu if he tried and then mercilessly kill him. Then he started to laugh arrogantly, addressing Ryu as a bastard. He prepared his fist to strike Ryu, leaving his buddies wondering what was about to happen. Now Youngmin slowly approached Ryu while stretching his arms, saying Ryu shouldn't have messed with him, and now Ryu will die because of his arrogance. Then we see Youngmin getting happy with a sweet face, thinking he is slowly coming toward, and just like this, he will land a punch to Ryu's face. And then he will make Ryu's face his punching bag. Then suddenly the red scythe from Ryu's hand disappeared, startling everyone. Again, with a confident look, Ryu explained that as Youngmin is fighting barehanded, so he will also fight without any weapon, as people might think Ryu is bullying the weak and the fight will be no fun. Now hearing this, Youngmin got really pissed off. But Ryu had enough of Youngmin's nonsense, and in an instant he dashed toward Youngmin. Then Youngmin prepared his punch, saying Ryu is an overconfident bastard as he stored his weapon, and now is dashing toward him like a sitting duck, and because of that he will die. With great force he swung his punch toward Ryu's face, but Ryu dodged it effortlessly, and in return gave a devastating kick onto Youngmin's stomach. Youngmin flew backward, heavily injured. Now Youngmin was in immense pain, lying on the ground, holding his hand, groaning and trembling. However, he didn't stop cursing Ryu. At this point, Ryu had had enough of Youngmin's cursing. Before Youngmin could do something, Ryu kicked Youngmin's face, stating that he had heard more than enough cursing and his ear would rot if he hears more. But Ryu didn't stop there. Before Youngmin could stand and think about what to do, Ryu grabbed Youngmin from his collar and started punching Youngmin's face like a punching bag. Now Youngmin was in too much pain, feeling like he would die from the pain. He wondered how the hell his fist could hurt this bad. It was like being beaten by a hammer. At that moment, Youngmin realized Ryu's fists were as strong as his, and on top of that, Ryu was also lightning fast. Just then, Ryu prepared his heavy punch and bam, Youngmin was done for. His vision was getting blurry and his buddies prepared their bows and weapons toward Ryu, launching an arrow toward Ryu's head. Seeing this, Eren shouted in panic, warning Ryu to dodge it. However, Ryu, being the god of death, couldn't die with this lousy arrow, and he swiftly dodged it. Seeing this, the bow guy panicked, but before he could prepare another arrow, Ryu, with his lightning fast speed, dashed toward the bow guy. Although the bow guy launched his arrow, it didn't hit Ryu, and in an instant, Ryu came behind him, shocking him. Ryu expressed his admiration for how skilled the bow guy was with his bow. Then, with a swing, Ryu mercilessly ripped the bow guy's hand, and he started to scream intensely. Seeing this, the dagger guy and the bald guy, although scared, also started cursing Ryu. With that, they rushed toward Ryu with their daggers. However, Ryu, with a gleeful smile, used his skill, Seal of Death, and a red eye with a skull appeared on the bald guy's head, increasing his damage by 2x. With his scythe, his attack increased by 2, and with a single swing, he chopped off the bald guy's both legs. The bald guy fell to the ground in agony, screaming and groaning. The dagger guy was just too scared. He felt like he would pee in his pants. Then, Ryu dashed toward the dagger guy, with a serious face stating that, as they were holding weapons trying to kill someone, they must also be prepared to be killed by someone with a weapon. Again, with a single swing, like cutting a carrot, he chopped off the dagger guy's hands, leaving him in unimaginable pain with a terrified look on his face. Meanwhile, Ryu was satisfied, seeing that by using Seal of Death and adding it with his scythe, 2x damage was enough to penetrate the armor. Now the bow guy, the bald guy, and the dagger guy all were lying on the ground, screaming and crying in pain while trembling. Seeing them, Ryu thought it was not enough for him, so he once again slowly started to walk toward them. Then, we see Ryu had slowly made multiple deep cuts on their bodies, slowly torturing them. At that moment, the pain was so intense that they started to beg Ryu to just kill them, as dying was more bearable than this hellish torture. But Ryu didn't stop there, and with a swing, he separated the blood from his scythe, saying to stop crying like a baby as he wasn't going to kill them. Now, seeing how terrified the trio was, Ryu's job was done. He didn't intend to kill them from the start. He just wanted to show them what might happen if they messed with him, as he had future plans for Youngman and his crew. Turning back towards Youngman, who cowered behind a tree with a swollen face and a bloody nose, Ryu declared that hiding was useless. Not even a god could save him now. With a swift swing of his scythe, Ryu chopped off Youngman's right hand, causing blood to spatter like a fountain. Youngman, left in unimaginable pain, wore a horrified expression. Ryu, coldly observing the scene, reminded Youngman not to be a crybaby. Compared to the pain they inflicted on him, it wasn't even close. Another ruthless swing of the scythe severed Youngman's other hand, but Ryu's brutality didn't end there. Ryu began to mercilessly torture Youngman, shocking even the bodyguard. Seeing this, the bodyguard was too shocked, his eyes wide open, not knowing what to do. He thought Ryu was just too ruthless, as he couldn't believe how mercilessly Ryu chopped their body parts like it was nothing. Even when they lost the will to fight, Ryu continued torturing them until they begged for death, then continued saying others might feel he is too ruthless, but he liked this type of people. As Ryu was chopping off Youngman's other leg, the bodyguard was in awe, seeing the ruthless Ryu. He was in love. The bodyguard was still lost in his daydream when Ryu's voice abruptly woke him up. After the brutal torture session had concluded, Ryu strolled casually toward Arin and the bodyguard, inquiring if they were okay. They responded with a bit of panic, expressing their gratitude to Ryu. Pointing his thumb nonchalantly towards the incapacitated Youngman and his crew, Ryu remarked that they didn't need to worry about them. Arin explained that he had a proposal for her, but she seemed a little nervous. With a hopeful smile, she said that she wanted to team up with Ryu and asked if they could team up together. Hearing this, Ryu smiled and replied that teaming up meant both parties were helping each other. Rin replied with a shiver that it was true, and Ryu said that he didn't think they could help him in any way, so he didn't want to team up with them. In a harsh tone, she said that they should go and stop wasting their time with this nonsense and turn back. With that, Ryu turned back and said that he had no desire to team up, and started walking deeper into the forest. Well, this was his way of taking revenge on the bodyguard. Then, when Ryu left, the bodyguard was really upset. He said that Ryu was really arrogant. But Rin, she fell to her knees, fainting, murmuring how intense Ryu's vibe was, like he could cut her down at any moment. Then she said she really wanted to be on the same team with Ryu ever since she first saw him fight, but it didn't work out well. The bodyguard, still upset, said that he had already told Rin that strong people like her always have big egos, and they like to work alone, and they don't like working in a team. Now standing near the ghost corpses, they thought about what to do in the remaining time before the vote, and they decided to hunt down some ghosts like Ryu so they could raise their level. Then, as they started to go inside the forest, we saw someone following them from the bushes. The scene then changes, and we see Ryu continuing to mercilessly kill the goblins while the goblins try to save their lives. After killing goblins for an hour, a group of gnolls approached Ryu, and upon seeing them, Ryu gave a big, bright smile and said, "Looks like something delicious has come your way." Then, when the group of wolves attacked Ryu simultaneously, Ryu killed them like vegetables in a single blow, and their torn body parts started falling like rain from the sky. With that, Ryu finally reached level 10. The system informed Ryu that he could access the shop as soon as he reached level 10. Then, a hidden quest to change class appeared before the voting started. If Ryu changed his class today, he would get a 50% discount on today's items in the shop. Ryu explained that everyone could choose which class they wanted after reaching level 10, but no one knew how to choose a class. For Warrior, one had to kill 30 demons in less than an hour, and one could become a berserker after fighting demons while bleeding for an hour, and so on. And after grinding continuously for God knows how long, Ryu gained this knowledge. After that, Ryu held the fairy's special juice in his hand. He began to absorb it, and a bright yellow light surrounded Ryu. The system informed Ryu that he had changed his class to Grim Reaper, and he got 3 unique abilities. First, when he wields the sickle, his attack increases by 2 times. Second, when he fights at night, his speed increases by 50%. And finally, at night, all of his senses are greatly enhanced. But that wasn't enough, so the system gave Ryu a Grim Reaper sickle to change his class, making him the first in the entire world. Then the system informed Ryu that he had moved up from the beginner rank to the apprentice rank. Ryu informed that there are a total of 6 ranks, starting with beginner, then apprentice, then regular, then expert, then master, then grandmaster. And with each rank comes a unique skill related to the class. As soon as Ryu reached the apprentice rank, he acquired the skill Seal of Death. Using it, he can place a seal on a target and inflict double the damage. After combining it with the 2x damage of his weapon, the Grim Reaper Sickle, he can inflict 4x damage. He also gained the skill of Tracking, which enables him to find the location of any person, provided he remembers the person's face or nickname. Oh boy, I wish I had this skill to track my crush. Now fully equipped, the first person Ryu thought of using his skill on was Youngman. He used his skill to track him, and the system informed him that Youngman was 190 meters away, with an arrow indicating the direction. So Ryu began to follow the arrow with an amused smile. The scene changes, and we see an exhausted Eren struggling to stay on her feet. She falls to the ground, and when she tries to stand up, her whole body shakes. She's in a lot of pain and tells her bodyguard that she can't run anymore. The bodyguard, who is hurting himself and panicking, helps her to her feet. She stands there, saying that the arrow wounds are killing her. The bodyguard, still scared, speculates, maybe if they can last an hour without dying, their real bodies won't be harmed. But before Eren can respond, they hear a voice that stuns them. It's Youngman and his crew. Youngman is smiling as if he's got the upper hand, telling them that they won't be able to run away today. The bodyguard looks like he's ready to give up. He thinks he can do it. Don't die for this damned woman. He keeps his dagger ready. However, since it seems there is no option left but to fight, Youngman sees the dagger and calls the bodyguard, an old man, asking if he really wants to fight them. He then points to his back, shows how many friends he has, and asks the bodyguard if he's blind so he can't see them all. The bodyguard yells angrily, wanting to know why Youngman is doing this and what he's gonna get out of this. Youngman just smiles, that creepy smile, and says he's gonna get something really good, which shocks them both. Youngman goes on to say that he'll take the woman behind him. Since he's not interested in men, he can go, and he won't do anything to the bodyguard. Youngman only wants the woman who looks like the actress Eren. Then Youngman's friends saw a woman who looked like Eren. They didn't care if she was real or not. In this world, where they can feel pain, they thought they can also feel pleasure, so they wanted to have some fun with Eren. Eren got scared hearing this. Youngman then tried to make a deal with the bodyguard. He said that if he handed over Eren, he could run away without a scratch, and they would return Eren without any harm after their fun. He said that everyone would be happy this way. The bodyguard got confused. If he had known that they were after Eren from the beginning, he would have left and saved his life. After all, he was in this job for the money and his life was more valuable than any job. But the fear of Heavenly Demon getting angry if he failed in his duty to protect him made up his mind. He got ready to fight. Seeing this, Youngman found fun at the old man's readiness to fight. The bodyguard tried to argue, saying that what they were planning was a crime, but Youngman just laughed it off. "Who will punish us?" he joked. "No one knows what we really look like or who we are in real life." With their backs against the wall, the bodyguard and Eren prepared themselves, trying to think of what their next move would be. Then someone else appears out of nowhere, and it is none other than the god of death, Ryu, who is resting under a tree, watching the entire confrontation. Youngman looked at Ryu and panic flashed across his face, wondering what he was doing there. Ryu then asked Eren what they were doing there, but before he could answer, Youngman tried to tell Ryu to mind his own business with his usual attitude. Ryu interrupted him and asked, "Did I ask you?" The bodyguard quickly told Ryu everything, about how Youngman attacked them, and that they wanted to have some fun with Eren. Upon hearing this, Ryu stared at Youngman and asked if it was true. Youngman replied with his stoic attitude that whether it was true or not, Ryu should just mind his own business. Ryu was fed up with Youngman's nonsense. In a deep voice, Ryu said that whether it was his job or not was none of Youngman's business, and he should mind his own business. Next, he summoned his red, bloody sickle with a terrifying aura that shocked everyone. Now, with one hand in his pocket and the other hand holding his large sickle, giving off a bloody red aura, Ryu spoke in a deep voice. He made it clear that he would not let Youngman go unharmed, especially when he knew that Youngman intended to harm someone. Eren and his bodyguard stood behind Ryu, speechless. Youngman gritted his teeth when he saw Ryu come to Eren's aid. Eren and his bodyguard expressed their gratitude to Ryu for saving them. However, Ryu didn't play the hero out of the goodness of his heart. He had his own motives. Turning back, he explained that by saving the heavenly demon's right arm, they would be indebted to him. Ryu believed that this could help him fulfill his future plans. Plus, he already had plans to take care of Youngman, which was like killing two birds with one stone. As Ryu slowly approached Youngman, he became afraid. In a trembling voice, Youngman hesitantly warned Ryu not to get close to him, threatening to kill him. Seeing the scared look on Youngman's face, Ryu smiled slyly, teasingly asking if Youngman didn't want to fall, mentioning that he was eager to test his powers. So guys, today's like goal is 3,000 likes. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Aren and her bodyguard bowed their heads once again, thanking Ryu for his intervention. Curious, Aren asked what would happen if Youngman and his men died due to excessive bleeding. Ryu bluntly stated that if they died, they'd die, comparing them to winged beasts. Observing Aren's compassionate nature, Ryu realized she might struggle in this harsh world. However, the bodyguard interrupted Ryu's thoughts, questioning why he let Youngman and his men live. He argued that killing enemies was better to prevent potential future problems. Hearing this, Youngman grew terrified, but Ryu, with a knowing smile, found the bodyguard intriguing, as he knows exactly what type of world it is turning into, and only these types of people will survive longer in the future. Then, Ryu said the reason he didn't kill those guys was simple. Killing them would not bring any benefit to him. The bodyguard was a bit confused, and asked if they might seek revenge in the future if left alive. Ryu, glaring at them, who were so terrified that if Ryu even clapped his hands, they might shit their pants. Ryu, with a smile on his face, asked the bodyguard does he think these guys had the will to take revenge, and if they wanted to, he was ready for a round 2 of torture. Then, Ryu elaborated further, explaining that mindlessly killing people would decrease the player population. Hearing Ryu's explanation, the bodyguard had a moment of realization. He grasped what Ryu meant. Fewer survivors in each round meant fewer available spots for people to pass. In that moment, the bodyguard's admiration for Ryu deepened. He saw Ryu not only as strong, but also incredibly smart, finding him downright amazing. Understanding the situation, the bodyguard sighed, declaring that he wouldn't pay attention to these useless trash. Once again, he thanked Ryu for his assistance, but then the bodyguard stopped Ryu, asking if Ryu could tell his real name, or even his bank account name, so that he could compensate him. Ryu didn't stop, and with a cold voice said, "No need," and just like that, he vanished into the deep forest. Now, the bodyguard was left wondering. Ryu had just helped them, and didn't even ask for anything in return. He would have to report this to the heavenly demon. However, a groaning voice interrupted his thoughts. As he turned back, it was young men crying in pain. Seeing them, the bodyguard was too eager to kill them. But as Ryu told them not to, he somehow managed to control his anger. Then he spit on Youngman's face, saying, "Disgusting," and they left. Then, the scene shifts, and we see all the players arguing about whom to vote for. They started fighting among themselves, creating a chaotic situation. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the chaos, and it's the green-haired guy. With a serious tone, he stated that only 2 hours were left, and fighting wouldn't bring any good to them. Hearing this, other players asked what they should do, and if he had any solution. The green-haired guy confidently said he indeed had a plan, shocking everyone. With a smirking face, he thought that people are just too foolish, easily falling for his skill. We see all the players with hypnotic eyes following the green-haired guy, who gave an evil smile. Then we go back to the past to see what this green-haired guy's ability is. His unique skill is named Rune of Persuasion, and using this, when he talks to someone, there are high chances that they will obey his words. Initially, when he got this ability, he was angry, thinking about how he could fight using this seemingly useless skill. However, to test it, he saw a woman struggling to fight 3 goblins. He started shouting that the woman was in grave danger and that they should help her. As soon as the other players heard his words, they started running toward the woman to save her. He realized how deadly his skill was. Just by communicating with someone, he could manipulate their minds to do whatever he wanted. Now, the task of becoming the zone leader was a piece of cake for him, using this skill. Then, the green-haired guys said they first have to decide on some candidates, so they can narrow down whom to vote for, and they will select 5 candidates. Hearing this, the players said it's not a bad idea, and they don't think they have any better idea than this. Now, the green-haired guy started to laugh, thinking his plan is going smoothly. The crowd was in deep thought about which 5 people to choose, and the green-haired guy was seeing this, enjoying the show as he knew he would be there as one of the 3 candidates. Now, the players started to see him as a reliable guy. Just as he thought, someone from the crowd said he wanted the green-haired guy to be one of the 5 candidates, and following him, others also started saying yes. When all the players were fighting, not knowing what to do, he was the one who guided them, so he could become a good leader. Hearing this, the green-haired guy tried to act like he didn't expect anyone would have said his name, saying he is not capable enough to be a leader. But all the players started to praise him, saying he has the qualities of a leader. From inside, the green-haired guy was just too happy, thinking about how foolish all these players are, easily getting manipulated. Then he said if all the players are saying so, although he didn't want to, he will become one of the candidates. The remaining 4 candidates went like this. They selected Black Scythe, who was ranked first. Then a guy named Life is a Documentary, who was ranked second. Then the green-haired guy said, as all the candidates were selected, now he will start with a warm and kind smile. He said that if he becomes the zone leader, but before he could finish his sentence, Life is a Documentary intervened, saying this is all bullshit. As the green-haired guy turned back, he saw a muscular guy with a tattoo on his neck, cleaning his ear with his pinky finger. His name was Life is a Documentary, the second-ranked guy in the zone. With an angry face, he said he can't listen to his bullshit anymore. Hearing this, the green-haired guy, with a serious face, started to say that his use of words was too harsh and people like him would not become good leaders. But Life is a Documentary got furious, saying he is not here to listen to a lecture, especially not from a weak, pathetic guy like him who looks like he still drinks his mommy's milk. Now hearing this, the green-haired guy got a little angry, but he was also shocked, thinking if his skill was not working on him. And if that's the case, then that means his level is higher than his. Life as a Documentary started to threaten the players, saying if they don't vote for him, he will kill everyone.